Hello and welcome back to our journey on becoming a better hard support player. This time around, we're going to focus on developing our hero pool, which is by no means an exact science. You are free to play whoever you'd like within reason, please. But something I found when talking to lower ranked players is that when I ask, what are a list of your best heroes? I get a list that is way too long. Not to offend anyone or personally attack anyone, but it's just unlikely that you are really playing 15 heroes at a very high level. More likely, you're either playing them all at a lower level than you think, or that you are failing to recognize some of the limitations you have, and that you genuinely do only have a couple heroes you're very good with, and the rest that you think you're good with, but aren't really nearly as good as you think you are. Again, no offense, but it is important to admit that we have these limitations if we're trying to improve. Playing heroes we're not good with is just going to hurt our chances at winning the game. My recommendation is to start with one or two heroes that we are going to focus on and become good with. The reason for that is that playing Dota comes in kind of two parts. There's playing the hero and then playing the game. Playing the hero is like Jakiro having this long cast animation for his ice path, so you have to learn, this is where I aim to hit the hero. It takes some getting used to. It's about knowing that my Q and E does this much damage and it provides an attack slow. So these are the heroes I can trade well with in lane, and these are the heroes that I kind of struggle against. This kind of hero-specific information is good when I'm playing Jakiro, but it does not transfer over when I play, say, Disruptor. Because Disruptor has different abilities, he's a different hero, he has different pros and cons. The problem when you play multiple heroes is that you tend to get focused on these hero-specific things, and that's kind of what you're focused on when you're playing the game. Instead, what we want is to be good at a couple heroes, one or two, be very comfortable with them, and now we can start focusing on playing the game. So, for example, we think about, should I be in the top lane? Should I be in the bottom lane? What's my next objective? Should I be stacking for my carries? Can we do Roshan? These kind of overall game ideas that will carry over to different heroes. So, Jakiro and Crystal Maiden and Disruptor and even supports to cores, everyone. We all need to know, how do we win this game? Where should we be? How should we be playing? That is what helps us become a better player in a more general sense, rather than just being a good Jakiro player. You're now a good Dota player. So we focus on a couple heroes so we can develop that game sense. And then once we have a good game sense, we can now go backwards to increase our hero pool. I love the drafting phase in Dota. I think it is so cool. It's this mental game where we plan and strategize before the actual game where we do everything. We think about, wow, I'm going to pick this hero. It's going to counter that hero. I'm going to pick this hero that combines well with this guy. We're going to ban that one. Final pick this one. It's going to work so well together. And as a hard support playing pub games, we're not going to get to do any of that because we're just going to first pick our hero every single game almost. And there's no guarantee that anyone's going to work with us. So we just kind of pick our hero and that's it. Which, is a joke, but I'm also dead serious in that we are going to first pick our hero almost all the time. And we're not going to get to plan, really. We're just going to have to preemptively pick our hero and hope it works out. That's why my recommendation for your first hero or two that you are going to focus on, be a very good generic hero, where there's no really bad game to be in, because, like I said, we're going to first pick it, so we wanted to do well regardless of how the rest of the draft goes. So I'm going to cover a couple of those traits here. You don't necessarily have to have all of these, but usually having at least some of these will help you have a pretty decent game no matter how the draft goes. So to start off, we have stuns. Stuns just make the game easier to play, especially now that they put those status bars above heroes that show oh, I'm about to be not stunned. So it makes chain stunning a lot easier, which makes the game a lot easier to coordinate in your pubs. When the enemy team, oftentimes one side or the other, will start running off with the game, when the enemy team is doing that, they don't always have the best discipline in pubs. So the enemy offlaner or the enemy carry, the enemy mid, whoever's running away with the game, they may go out of position. And then you chain stun them and they can't do anything. They can't use their abilities, they can't use their items, and you kill them. You get a lot of gold because you just killed the best hero on the enemy team. and now you have a lot of space because they're dead for a long time, so you can start to catch up in the game. This happens quite a lot in pub games, so it's good to start with a stun as a support. The other reason it's good to start with a stun as a support is because technically you might pick someone who doesn't have a stun, right? Let's think about this. We are hoping that someone else on our team is going to pick a stun, but unfortunately, in pub ranked games, this doesn't happen nearly as much as it should. To be fair, many carries don't have a stun. Many mid laners are not necessarily going to pick a stun. Off laners frequently have a stun, and I am a fan of initiating off laners, but that also tends to not happen quite frequently. So now we're fully dependent on maybe the 4 support picking the only stun in the game if we don't have one. And that's going to make the game hard. When you don't have any stuns, that's when it feels very difficult to do things. So at least knowing that you're going to have a stun for your team is a great way to start the draft. And then hopefully at least someone else will pick a stun or 2. And at least having 2 stuns on 2 heroes, that is, it's at least in an okay place to begin with. Next, we're going to want to have someone who has a strong presence in the laning stage. Because many times, if you just win the lane in a ranked game, that kind of wins you the game a lot of the time. People just don't fully understand how to play out a game where they should know, they have this idea that their draft should be able to catch up and win later, but they don't know how to do it. So just having that advantage at the start is often enough to just win a lot of games, especially at lower MMRs. So that's kind of what we want. And especially as the hard support, if we win the lane, then our carry should be having a good game. And much of the way ranked games go, the carry does end up trying to win the game for your team. So getting them off to a good start is always good no matter what. Next, having some wave clear. This functions in 2 ways. When your team is getting destroyed, the enemy team obviously has to push down your towers to actually win the game. And if you're able to clear waves quite quickly, then they can't push, and you can slowly stall out the game. Eventually, they will take that tower probably, but you can buy a lot of time. Every time you kill a creep wave, you buy yourself about 30 seconds before the next creep wave is there. And that slow extension of the game, that helps your team catch up and to get the farm they need, and then eventually take the fight they want to hopefully get back into the game. The other side of that, funny enough, teams often don't push when they should, which is like a weird thing to say when I just told you about de-pushing. When your team is not pushing as they should, because they just want to farm the jungle for whatever reason, you still need to get your lanes pushed out. That is just a fundamental part of Dota. So if the 5 position can do that, then it works out well. You get farm that technically you probably shouldn't be, but you get to get it. That's great. But you also help your lane out by shoving it to the enemy team's towers, and for reasons we'll cover in the future, that is a very good thing to do. Those 3 are kind of the most important that I really recommend you look for. A stun, whether it's a single target stun or a AoE stun, someone who can win. You don't have to win every lane because as the 5, that's kind of hard to do, but try to set yourself up in a good way. And then having that wave clear will again help you whether you're winning or losing. Now the rest of these are useful things to consider, but not necessarily something I would say you have to require. So when you can double stack things, I'm going to cover stacking camps in the future, but many people, every hero can stack at least 1 camp by hitting it and then walking away. Some heroes can stack multiple camps by using an ability as well. The timing can depend depending on the hero and which camps you're trying to stack, but if you're able to stack multiple camps at a time, that is just really good if your team can do stacks, because you're just creating a lot more gold for your team, gold and experience, and it just helps you get ahead and snowball the game. And again, pub games, usually having that very strong start is very good, disproportionately so. It shouldn't be that good, but it just is the way that the pub meta works out. High ground vision. So heroes like Jakiro, Crystal Maiden, who else? Winter Wyvern to an extent. These heroes have abilities to check the high ground. So specifically, I'm talking about wards. The little ward cliffs. if you don't have high ground vision, you either have to put your sentry on top of it, or you have to have your courier nearby to check it for you, or maybe someone on your team can check the high ground. But again, it's a little hard to coordinate with your teammates in pub games sometimes, so being able to do it yourself is very beneficial as a support. It opens up a lot of new ways to place your sentries instead of just having to put it on top of the high ground, which, again, I'll go into more detail in a future video, but for now, just understand it should be a consideration. Forced movement skills are kind of like a force staff, how you can use it on the enemy team and it shoots them forward. People's positioning in Dota, in pub games, is often really bad. And to be fair, it's hard to recognize bad position if you're not that high. So it's something that can be difficult to capitalize on. But the higher you go, the more likely you'll see players who say, like, this guy's out of position, go kill him. And sometimes in team fights, it can be just a matter of being a few 100 units away. That sounds like a lot, but in Dota, that's not that much. 100 units in spacing can make the game, can make your hero in a bad position or not, sorry. And so heroes like Disruptor and Vengeful Spirit and Konka's X Marks, I'm sure there's a couple I'm forgetting, but these heroes who can force the enemy into a bad position are really strong because people's position will already be bad, and then you throw them in an even worse spot, and it's like free kills in the game. And you get that one pick off, it becomes a 5v4 for your team. Then you get another pick off, 5v3, and you just keep snowballing it because the enemy team, again, just has like poor positioning in so many games. And then finally, we want to not have tilting skills. So what do I mean by that? Some heroes in Dota are a lot more likely to get pinged by your teammates for messing up a skill. An example is Disruptor. Or I'm sorry, not Disruptor. Shadow Demon with Disruption. So Disruption kind of encapsulates a target, and that target disappears for a bit, so it can be a save for your team, or it can catch an enemy team hero and possibly set up a kill, but sometimes it can save their life when they were supposed to die, and then you just whoop, disappear them from the game for a bit, and then they get away. Or you're supposed to save a teammate, you didn't do it, and then they died. And they ping your ability, they get really mad. So the reason we kind of want to avoid this is that as you're trying to improve in Dota, to be fair, like, you won't always know if you're doing the right thing or not. Sometimes we'll make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And many of them, maybe I'm not sure I'm making them. When someone is tilted and they start blaming you, it can be difficult to know whether that's fair or not. So sometimes, maybe you really couldn't use Disruption yet. Or maybe you were trying to save it for a more important target, so you didn't want to save this person who died. And then they start pinging you, and you question yourself. You're like, maybe I should have saved them. Or, like, was my idea correct? I don't know. And it's hard to know that for yourself. And the tilting from from your own team can really make it difficult. It can persuade you to make the wrong play. Like, you'll say, I don't want to get pinged, I'll save this guy. But it was not the correct play. So we kind of want to avoid that. So that we don't get confused as we're improving, but also because it's just generally bad to have a team tilted. So these skills can be difficult to use, although they can be very good, right? It's like you can make plays or you can get people tilted. Tusk is a very good example where it's either like, this guy's the greatest Tusk in the world, or like, we're reporting him at the end of the game. One or the other. That is a common reaction from people. And it sucks. Like, I don't think you should be penalized for playing these difficult heroes, but that's kind of how pub games go. And being aware of that will help us out when we're trying to pick our heroes. So, again, these first three are the ones I recommend prioritizing. A stun, someone who can win the lane, and the wave clear. And then if you could have one of these others, that'd be good. So, for example, I picked Jakiro as the hero I played, and I played him for like 70 games out of like the 100 I did from Divine to Immortal. Jakiro has an AoE stun. He's a very strong laner. Got very good wave clear. He can double stack using some of his abilities. Ice Path gives ground vision. He does not have a forced movement ability. I suppose you could buy Blink, but... I'm sorry, not Blink, Force Staff. But, you know, that's not really the hero, it's an item. No tilting skills? Not really. If you miss an Ice Path, some people... I've gotten my share of pings when I miss an Ice Path, because it is a bit difficult to hit. But it's not nearly as major as like a Dazzle save or an Oracle save, where like that gets a lot of pings, right? you didn't save me. I'm dead. Even though that guy like ran off on his own. That guy should have known. But that doesn't happen as much as in when you like miss an ice path. You get a couple, and then usually they move on. So Jakiro is an example of who I picked. So go ahead and whichever hero you want to play, just think about how many of these do they tick. Again, I'm not going to tell you who you have to play, but if you think like I want to play Lich, see where he falls. Lich, he has it's not it. I guess it's a stun. It's like a taunt. It's weird. It's new. Lane winner for sure. Wave clear, not the best, but moderate. Double stacking, it would be difficult to do as Lich. I think it's probably possible on certain parts of the map, but it's certainly difficult. High ground vision, I don't think he can do as far as I know, but again, I don't play that much Lich, but I don't think he can do it. Forced movement, technically his E is now forced movement, I guess, but it's like it's such a small degree, it's not the same as Disruptor or whatever. No tilting skills. Some people may be a little annoyed the way you use your shield, but overall, it's not a big deal. So that's just an example of another hero and how you would apply that to here. So whatever hero you want to play, think about this and see how many you hit. And if you hit, I would say 4, then that's probably pretty good as a starting point for the hero for our hero pool development plan. Once we have picked out our heroes we're going to focus on, let's just say 1 to start with. So I'll run through my own example. I picked Jakiro. So the first thing we can do from playing Jakiro in the client, we're going to want to learn his abilities, right? You may think you know them, but go ahead and read them all just to be double sure, test them out in a demo lobby, understand the talent tree, the Aghanim Scepter. If you have Dota Plus, you can see the different distributions on talents. An interesting way is to compare them between ranks, and you can kind of see the differences. So sometimes lower ranks think that damage is always good, but then as you go higher, you'll see like, oh, they tend to pick the utility talent more. That can give you some insights on how higher level players are playing the hero and help you adjust your own views. You can take a look at this about tab, which will give you some of these stats. Really from this stuff, what you want to know is how well you can trade in the early laning stage usually. So like how much attack damage, like is it high or low? Your general attack time, and how much armor you have. Because that, if you have high armor, you want to get into these trade wars. And if you don't, then you don't. But usually it's relative to enemy heroes. So against someone with 4 armor, they would come out on those trades when compared to me. But against someone with 1 armor, now I'm stronger relatively. So you're going to want to compare that to different heroes, and I'll go into that more in the future. Same with the move speed, all of this. Again, we'll worry about it more in the future. So after reading your abilities here, these are a bit misleading. For better or worse, Dota, sometimes the information on these tabs is actually wrong. So what we're going to want to do instead is to go take a look at the Dota 2 wiki. So for example here, Dual Breath. 20 damage per second. I don't think it actually says it on here. Even when you press Alt, which can give you additional information, if you didn't know that, there you go. I don't see it on here, so this is supposed to be 20 damage per second for a duration of 5 seconds, which may lead you to think, oh, it does 100 damage. That is not true. The Dota 2 wiki will give you a lot more detailed information about stuff that maybe you think is not relevant, but I still recommend you go ahead and read the entire Dota 2 wiki page for whichever hero you're going to focus on. Because, for example, in Jakiro, and I didn't learn this until I played a lot of games of Jakiro because I forgot to do this step. Whoops. Do as I say, not as I do. Dual Breath actually does 110 damage level 1 because it does 11 instances of damage for whatever reason after they changed it. Because originally it didn't do that damage when you first applied it, but then they added that so that you could cancel Blink. So not for whatever reason, there's the actual reason. But what that ended up doing is it added 1 additional instance of damage. And that 20 damage per second is actually dealt in half-second interval. So it's actually 10 damage per half second, which resulted in, it should have been 10 instances and then plus that 1. So it's actually 110 damage level 1. That kind of information may not sound that important. And like I said, I was playing for a while without fully knowing that. But knowing these kind of things can be useful. For example, knowing the max amount of damage your ultimate could technically do could help you determine a solo kill. Dark Willow is a good example of knowing exactly how much damage her Bedlam can do to an individual hero is a great way for her to know who can I solo kill when I combine it with some of my other spells. So that sort of thing is just very useful to learn from the Dota 2 wiki, and this information here is generally correct as far as I know. It is unfortunately kept up more to date than some of the... We won't... Let's not worry about that. That's a whole different thing. So, aside from the Dota 2 wiki, we now want to learn how people may actually level up their skills, not just know this general information. So we can go to Dota buff, and let's find Jakiro on here. Here he is. Some of the information you might find here. We can see their general win rate, their pick rate. That's not that important, but it can help you to identify what heroes are in the meta right now. And in fact, maybe we should start with that. If we go, yes, you can see it. So hover over heroes, go to meta. And then I guess you could do whatever bracket you're in. I usually just do this one because it's where the highest players are. And so that's kind of like the most potential of a hero. You can sort by win rate. And this can kind of help you shape the idea of like what's in the meta right now. So if you were trying to pick out a hero, you might see like, oh, Bane is a popular 5 support who's doing really well. So that could be a good place to start. Starting with the meta heroes makes it a little easier for you, right? If the hero is strong, I mean, might as well start there. And the benefit of that is that if you spam a hero that's strong, then when they get nerfed, you can stop playing them a bit. But if you still played them, you would have developed that good feeling for the hero, and that makes it easier. Anyways, you would just shift down here and look for, maybe if you had the idea of like, oh, I want to play Jakiro, where's he fall on this? Oh, look, he's actually quite high up there. So not a bad place to start. So let's go back to the Jakiro page. Here, again, you can find the talent distribution if you don't have Dota Plus. You can find some common items, and you can find his best and worst matchups statistically. So I hate playing against Rubik. We'll go into that later. This is not always what you should do. But figuring out what you should do can be hard. So you'll notice if we click the guides, we can now take a look at their actual abilities and the items people bought. And this is where we don't want to just cookie cutter follow a build. So we don't want to just look at this guy who, although he's around 5,000 MMR, who knows? Maybe he was just doing an experimental build this game. Maybe he was goofing off. Maybe he was tryharding. We don't really know. We don't want to just copy the exact first build we see, because it could also be very specific to the game he's in. And for example, it's not common to just level Ice Path like this and maxed out first. And if we look at him, I can sort of see why he did it, because it can help set up kills if he has a longer stun with the team he has. So I could sort of see why he wants to do that this game. But again, it's not always the most common build. See, other people want to get a few more points in Dual Breath before going into Ice Path, that sort of thing. So we just want a general feel for the different builds people are doing. We want to take a look at their starting items, although it's a little buggy on Dota buff. So this is just it's a guideline to see. It's like, oh, I've seen Yules, Atos, Scythe. Okay, so those are generally good items. Oh, another Yules, Glimmer, Ags. That's interesting, right? Only Glimmer Ags? Like, we probably don't want to cookie cutter that build. So just getting this feel, see what's common and what seems like niche, and then trying to draw those connections for yourself. It can be difficult if you don't understand the game too well, but again, this is just a starting point. Another website you can go to is Open Dota. Now, personally, I don't use this for learning how to play a hero. I use this for exploring the statistics of a given match, which I won't even bother going into right now, actually. You can use this website. I just want to throw it out there as an option. You could search for games and stuff here, but I find this easier to just look at my own games rather than try to find games to base it off of. And then the last thing here is Dota 2 Pro Tracker, which this website will let us look for heroes or players. So Dota buff, right? This was just, let's see, a 5,000 MMR game, 5,500, 5,500, 5,000, go to a different page. Let's see, 5,000, 4.5. So these are decently high games relative to Dota players. This is around 1% of the best players. But if we go to Dota 2 Pro Tracker, these are literally the top players. And again, we don't necessarily know if they were tryharding or goofing off, trying a new build. So we don't want to, again, just copy the first thing we see, but it's a very good place to start. So let's see, Insania, right? I know he's a position 5 player, and he's playing this hero in that role, so it's not a position 4 Jakiro. So if we open this Dota buff page, we can now look at that game specifically, find some information on his skill build, what he chose to do. And if we want to watch from his player perspective, we're going to copy this match ID. We go back into Dota, go to this watch tab, go to this replay sub tab. In this top corner, we put in that ID, press enter to search, and it's going to load the game. And in this spot here, you would have where my camera, I guess, is hiding it a little bit, would be a download. There we go. Download replay button, which you can see here. It's a little covered, but you would download this replay, and now you can watch the game from his perspective. And that is a great way to learn heroes. Either find some guides on the hero online, or maybe there are some written guides, or just watch several games from that player's perspective. See what they do, see how they play. We want to study up the hero a bit, because this focused studying is better than just playing a lot of games on our own, because there's no guarantee that we would understand, like we would figure it out ourselves. So you could play 10 games and never realize that your starting items are bad. But just by taking some time to look at some Dota buff builds or to look at some player perspectives and see how they start, that can help you get a much better idea of what items you should be starting, which you may never have figured out on your own. And again, be a little careful, because pros, they push the limits a lot of the time. So, for example, they may only start with one tango. They may give away, and by one tango, I mean they bought the charge of 3, gave 2 away, and they have one tango in lane. I would not recommend that to most lower MMR players, but pros try to push those limits and see how it works. And sometimes that works for pro players. So you do have to cut back a little bit and realize, like, I may not be able to do what this guy is doing, so let me start with something a little safer. That's totally okay. Don't fully try to copy pro players. Recognize that, like, we are not pro players. So we need to do what we are capable of doing well, and that will help us out. Once you have picked out your heroes and now you have an idea of how to get started learning those heroes, now we want to adjust this page a little bit to make it easier for ourselves. So right now, this is just all the heroes. And if you didn't know, you can actually type in here. So if I wanted to play Jakiro, I could type it out, find it that way. I always forget to do that, but it's something you can do. But you can actually adjust this page, which some of you may not have known by. So down here, attributes, you can actually make something custom. So if you create something new, this is how it looks like. And you can just remove heroes. He's gone now. Or add heroes to different stuff. And you can also create your own categories down here. So what you're going to do, this is my own page. Again, it's totally optional, but I find it helpful because I'm someone who's tempted, right? When I see all these heroes, I'm like, oh, I could play this guy, I could play this guy, I could play that guy, but that's bad for me. And that's why I had to make this tab myself. Please only play these guys. What we're going to do, Jakiro was the hero I picked, right? So I put him here. And if Jakiro is ever banned or both teams pick him, which falls under getting banned, I suppose, I just move down to Treant. He's who I play next. And then Snapfire. She's the third one. And you just kind of go down that list. So I only put 3 here because most of the time I just got Jakiro. And when he was banned, I got Treant. I never really needed this third person, to be honest. But you could have 3, I think, is a decent amount. Maybe 4 if you want. And you're just going to go down there. You're just always going to start here, move down. Now these heroes, so this would be my best hero pool. I don't always play all of these heroes in the 5 position, but at some point I played these heroes a lot, and I felt very good about them, to the fact where, even though I haven't played some of them in quite a while, if I got into a game with them, I would feel pretty good. So for example, Treant Protector is probably my best hero right now. Well, Jakiro is probably my best hero, followed by Treant Protector after playing Jakiro so much. But Treant Protector, 210 games, and a pretty good win rate. That suggests that I have some level of mastery over the hero, having a high win rate over a lot of games. Now 58, that's not the highest in the world, but again, it's better than 50%. And the higher your win rate, the faster you will climb in MMR, which sounds obvious, but it actually saves you a lot of time. So for example, a 51% win rate after 100 games, that is only 2 games, 2 net wins for you. So that is 60 MMR. But if you had a 55% win rate over 100 games, that is 10 positive games, which is 600 MMR. It is quite a big difference from playing a hero where you have a 50% win rate, where you would literally never change, to a 58% win rate. So having a hero that you're very good with is a great way to improve quickly. Dark Willow, not as many games, but a very good win rate. Humble brag. Grimstroke, I used to play him a lot. I played him as a 4 quite a lot. And you'll see I have not done very well with him recently. I think part of that is that I've been trying to play him as a 5, and I did not put in the time to fully learn him because I was only picking him when I wasn't able to play Jakiro, so I wasn't fully comfortable with him, to be honest. So maybe he shouldn't be on this full confidence list. I would have to go look into why I lost all those games. But Dazzle, again, 85 games, decent. But I like Dazzle a lot. Snapfire, I was playing her a lot. She got nerfed. I haven't played her quite as much, so I don't feel quite as comfortable. And these are even my best heroes, where like I don't feel the best with these guys. So thinking I could play a ton of heroes, I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I'm just not capable of playing a lot of heroes at the same time. But I think trying to play too many does hurt you. So then we can create this variety category. If you ever get really tired of spamming out these heroes, my recommendation is to go play unranked. But if you're in a ranked game and you're really tired of playing these guys, then go ahead and pick one of these. These are the heroes I feel like I played them at some point in the past. 26, not a lot, and I don't have a great win rate. 70, that's okay. Disruptor, like I said, I used to play him a lot. 80, decent. Witch Doctor, Crystal Maiden, 120 games, and I don't feel the best with her, okay? So just playing a hero a lot doesn't mean you're good at it. I'm awful with Rubik, and he's my most played. So this is where I would go to next, where like I'd probably have like a 50% chance of winning a game if I played one of these heroes. And then here's a last tab. So these are the heroes that I have planned out in the future that I should probably learn these guys to improve my hero pool. And if I'm ever playing with some friends and, you know, it's an unranked casual game and I'm panicking on who to pick, I can just click one of these guys and see and decide, you know what? It's time to get some practice in with these guys. Now, if you do ranked queue games, or I'm sorry, role queue games, then eventually you will have to earn more tokens, which is absurd. Can you believe I have to play mid lane to earn tokens to play hard support? That is absurd. That is some cruel irony there. But at some point, you will have to earn tokens. And if you're not in a party, then you may end up in a role you're not so familiar with. So again, I suggest creating something like this, where you just pick the hero you're most comfortable with next and move on. And really, pick the hero you're most comfortable with. So like say mid, if I were to identify it's a really good Morphling game and not such a good sniper game, I still pick Sniper because Sniper's probably my best mid hero. And I am awful with Morphling. So even though it's a good Morphling game, my chances at winning if I play Morph would actually be so low because I wouldn't have a good laning stage because I'm just bad at the hero. But Sniper, even though he wasn't supposed to have the best game, I'm just very comfortable with him, and that improves my chances. And again, just do it for all the roles. And then in the bans, this is who you're going to ban when that time comes. And I put it near here because that's near the ban button. So if you're ever slow to load in or trying to get your times in before the timer stops, then it's just easiest to have that short distance. Rubik was my #1 ban when I played Jakiro because he's just a better Jakiro. I'll go into that when I write a Jakiro guide at some point. But if Rubik got banned, I would just move down the list a bit, some other heroes I didn't want to play against if possible. And I don't know how much this applies to lower MMRs, hashtag humble brag. I only play in high divine to immortal games. But eventually you start to recognize some of the names in your game. And I started to identify, hey, this guy is a lone druid spammer. This guy is an alchemist spammer. This guy's a lichen spammer, so on. These are 3 heroes that I really disliked playing when they were on the enemy team because it felt so difficult to shut them down, even if I knew they were coming. So if I recognized that name, I would just ban that hero out and hope that, you know, I wouldn't have to deal with that. So you could put whoever you hate here. So like maybe you just hate playing against Ricky, you throw him on there. Maybe you hate Broodmother games, it's that kind of thing. But these heroes, like as Jakiro, I struggled to shut down on my own. Whereas like Broodmother, Jakiro's actually okay at that. So, you know, just tailor it to whatever heroes you are playing. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is my joke earlier where I said we don't really get to do anything in the draft, but that's not fully true. The hard support you pick can preemptively shape the draft. So here is a list of heroes I have assembled. So let's take Ancient Apparition first. Ancient Apparition, most notable for his ultimate, which stops all health regeneration and healing. So, if I first pick Ancient Apparition, it's very unlikely I will see any of these heroes on the enemy team, because these heroes have a very difficult time playing against Ancient Apparition, right? His whole thing is getting low health and killing everyone. But against an Ancient Apparition, he actually just dies until he gets a BKB, and even then, it's really difficult. Alchemist, his whole thing being very high HP regen, just hitting things really fast, ruined by Ancient Apparition. Same with Io, likes to heal people, can't do that against a Ancient Apparition. Now, you might still see these heroes, but it's very unlikely. And now further down on the list, these are heroes that, they don't want to play against the Ancient Apparition, but maybe they still could. So you may see these heroes, but you're reducing the chance that someone picks them because they see the AA in the game and they decide it's a little hard to play this hero. Oracle, depending how you view it, some people view Oracle as an counter to Ancient Apparition, and some view it the other way. So you might know that if you pick Ancient Apparition, you're either reducing the chance you see an Oracle or increasing the chance, depending on what side of that you believe in. But just know that that is a hero associated to Ancient Apparition, so you know what you're more likely to see or less likely to see. Now, Winter Wyvern, again, Meepo, Lycan. These are heroes that don't like seeing a Winter Wyvern on the enemy team because they frequently just kill themselves when they get ulted by Winter Wyvern. Or Winter Wyvern has a heal which blocks all physical damage, so heroes that heavily rely on physical damage, like Legion Commander and Lifestealer, they don't like seeing a Winter Wyvern because it just makes the game hard to play for them. Now, someone might still pick these heroes, but again, they're just less likely to show up. And it just kind of goes down the list. Someone with high physical damage, right? They don't want to just kill their teammate when they get ulted, but someone who has like a high burst like Sven, very likely to happen. And it just kind of goes down the list. It's just an example. This isn't like a full guarantee that I'll never see this hero if I pick Winter Wyvern, but we're just shaping it out. So these are heroes I personally think, but you could create something like this for some of the heroes you play, and you just think it out. Like, what am I likely to see against or on my own team when I pick this hero? Stuns from any support reduce the chance of high mobility heroes. I think this is something very worth noting because this is very strong in pub games, are these high mobility heroes like Storm, AM, I mean, everyone here I have on the list. AM, he'll probably pick AM if Shadow Shaman was the only hero in the game on the enemy team because, yeah, it's annoying, the instant Hex and a long stun, but it's just one hero. But what if that was Shadow Shaman plus Enigma? Now we've got 2 heroes with stuns that are quite annoying. Maybe I don't want to play AM. How about 3 or 4 stuns? And suddenly, I don't want to play any of these heroes because I'm not going to get to use my mobility, and that's a big part of the hero. So, by preemptively picking our stuns, we reduce the chance of these mobile heroes. And this is kind of what it is to draft as a support and recognize I am more likely to get some of these heroes or not. So these are the heroes that are supports that I think are the most capable of determining a draft. So I already covered these 2 heroes. Dazzle, so often when I pick Dazzle, the enemy offlaner picks Axe almost right away. Even to the point where I have teammates who see me hover over Dazzle and they'll say, don't pick Dazzle yet because then they'll pick Axe and I want to play Axe. Or like, don't pick Dazzle at all, pick someone else. Like, that is how frequently people pick Axe against Dazzle because that is just like the counter. Which, funny enough, I don't fully mind. So that's why I'm still willing to pick Dazzle, is because I think Dazzle actually has a very good laning stage against Axe. And yes, it's pretty annoying to have Grave countered by Axe, but I think there are ways to play around it. That is the degree to which I am comfortable playing Dazzle. But someone else who plays Dazzle, maybe they don't realize that. Maybe they don't realize Dazzle has some strength against Axes. And that's where playing all these different heroes can hurt you. And whereas being very comfortable, you learn to play around these counter picks. Oracle, Abaddon, Io, these are all like healing save heroes. So anytime you get one of these, you may end up with an Ancient Apparition, or you may know, Io, for example, very specific hero to require combinations on your own team. So if you pick Io, you really want someone like Bristleback or Gyro on your team. So you know like who you might see on your own team. But also the enemy team has picks like Grimstroke or Lich who like it when there are enemy heroes grouped together because it sets up their own ults. So when I pick Io, I'm very frequently likely to see Ancient Apparition, Grimstroke, Lich, these kind of heroes to pop up against me. Now these heroes also have purges, so they're very good against heroes like Bat Rider, Jakiro, anyone who has an ability that can be purged. These guys are good against. So you're less likely to see, say, a Legion commander who wants to duel and kill a target because these guys are saves. And it also opens up the ability to pick someone like Death Prophet who wants someone on her team to have a save so that, you know, she is safe while her ultimate is just doing a bunch of damage. Disruptor, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep calling him Disruptor. Shadow Demon is also a save with his Q. We kind of talked about that earlier. But his ultimate is also very strong against BKB buying melee heroes. So people who play like BKB melee heroes, they're less likely to be picked when they see a Shadow Demon. Silencer's ultimate is very unique, where it is a global silence that pierces BKBs. There's actually no item you can buy to prevent that from happening. So you, like, Silencer could ultimate and then you purge it, sure, but there's no way to just passively not be silenced by Silencer. And the reason that's super important is against Enigma. Enigma can usually itemize, right? He can get a BKB, he could get Lincolns, and now people shouldn't be able to cancel his Black Hole. But there is nothing he can do against a Silencer. And so against Enigma, you frequently see Silencer picked up when he's good in the meta. When he's not good, he's not good. And like right now, he's not that good as a support, in my opinion. So people will pick Enigma because they're not that worried about it. Like, it's annoying, but, you know, maybe not. But when he's stronger in the meta, then Enigma players will ban out Silencer because they don't want to deal with that. Undying, very good against melee heroes. Because of his decay and the way he works, he just, melee strength heroes in particular, he's very good against. So he just steals their stats, gets more damage, bullies you out. He's a very strong laner in that reason. But the way to play around that is to have a ranged hero who is less likely to get hit by decay and who has an easier time hitting Tombstone. So against Undyings, you'll typically see those ranged heroes with very fast attack speeds. We're updating the coordinator, guys. Coddle, very similar. On your own team, you get people who like to have mana, who want that cooldown reduction from his chakra magic. But on the enemy team, you're more likely to see people who have fast attack speeds, especially at range, in order to deal with Will-O-Wisp. Same with Phoenix Egg. Exact same concept, I won't go into it again. Nature's Prophet, whether he's a core or a support, is an extremely strong laner. So against certain heroes, he just crushes that matchup because they can't handle his treants and they can't handle his strong attack damage and good attack animation. So you will typically see someone who can deal with treants either by having very good wave clear early or who is like a melee hero who has that damage block to mitigate the treant harass, someone who has high armor, something like that. The other part of it is Sprout, where, you know, there's that meme that Arteezy always gets sprouted in team fights. But, like, that is, to be fair, what Nature Prophet does. If your hero does not buy Battle Fury or a Force Staff / Hurricane Pike, then you can get sprouted and you're just trapped in a fight and you can't do anything unless a teammate helps you out. So sometimes you'll see that considered when drafting against a Nature's Prophet, is to have someone who will buy their own Hurricane Pike so that, you know, they don't have to worry about Sprout so much. And then the last part of him, he's got a lot, right? Because he has that global presence of teleport, you will typically see people who can hunt him out. So like Clockwork, who can use his Rocket Flare to find him in the trees, and then his ultimate to get to him, cancel his ult, cancel his teleport, cancel his Sprout TP that usually follows up with that. And, you know, it's this counterplay to Nature's Prophet's global presence. Shen and Enchantress are both very strong early game. Last video we covered how most heroes cannot handle early game neutrals until they get a couple levels. And these guys control neutrals, so it makes it very difficult to play against them in the early game. So you get heroes like Doom or Crystal Maiden who have abilities that can easily get rid of, at least one neutral creep, which, that's all they can control at the start. And then usually after you get a couple levels, it's easier to deal with them anyways. Or you might get someone who has very good wave clear against lots of mobs, so like Luna's Glaive, something like that, or Sven, who can just cleave through a lot of creeps and get the gold. Or people who just have good early games, so they don't get rolled over by Chen and Enchantress. Enchantress as well also has her Unstoppable passive, which is now her ultimate. So you get people who have very high attack speed or very high magic burst damage. So in my opinion, these heroes are the most likely to shape a draft. Consider it for your own heroes. So obviously, if your hero is not on this list, they're still going to have an effect on the draft. So just consider what heroes are good against mine or go well with mine, because that could affect how the game goes. If you're familiar with heroes in general, support heroes, you could now stop watching the video. It's probably quite long, to which I apologize. But now we will talk about some of the general support heroes in the game. So if you're not sure who to play, then this is for you. First off, any hero you are good with or comfortable with. So if you have Dota Plus, you level them up. And that's always nice to see on my team, because I know that person is comfortable with that hero, so it's a good sign. And if you pick a high Dota Plus level hero, sometimes your teammates will also flex. So it's like, oh, this guy's got a level 25 hero? Here's my level 25 hero. Check that out. Now we've got two people playing very good heroes, or heroes that they're very good with, and that's a good start for your team. Not saying you have to buy Dota Plus, but if you happen to have it, that is a useful thing. Even if you don't have it, just being comfortable with the hero, that is always a good start. So any hero you're comfortable with, that is good. Now, uncommon picks. So ET, Phoenix, Chen, they can all play position 5, but they're not very popular in the meta. And they're not very popular with players because they're either confusing heroes or difficult to play. That can be good for you. If the enemy team doesn't fully understand your hero, then that makes it really easy for you. They don't know they shouldn't fight you, and you just kill them. Like, that's very easy for you then, right? Visage isn't really a position 5 anymore, but when he was, it was the same concept, where he's just not picked. And the only people that pick these heroes are usually good at the hero, and that makes it tough. Phoenix is getting to be quite popular, so maybe doesn't quite fall under this category anymore. But having said that, people still underestimate playing against Phoenixes, so I think it falls into this category. Then you have these guys, who are all just standard supports. They aren't necessarily good or bad right now. I mean, some are. Like, Line is notoriously bad at this moment. But again, I want this video to be just conceptually. Things change throughout the patches, so maybe in the future, Lion will be good. The thing is, all of these heroes have just been standard 5 positions for a long time. I don't think anyone would really complain if you picked one of these heroes, as long as you were fairly comfortable at them, pretty good at them. Like, no one would complain like, ah, man, I've got an Oracle on my team, what a pain. As long as you play the hero well, it works out. So my recommendations, based on the stuff we talked about earlier, would be these 3, because they're all quite simple, and they all provide good utility. They provide those traits I talked about earlier. I think they're pretty easy to learn, and they've always been pretty good throughout the different metas. So those 3 are what I recommend. Here, you're starting to get into some weirder picks. A lot of these are actually 4 position heroes, but I've seen played as the position 5. Again, this changes a lot throughout the metas. So, like, I've heard Tusk is rising as a position 5, which usually I don't agree with, but I could see why that works. So if you really liked Tusk and you wanted to play him as a position 5, again, I would be okay with that, because, if you're good with the hero, you can play around the fact that it's not a very common pick. Now I'm going to do this live. We'll see how this goes. This is the bare minimum of heroes, where, well, let's just do it, right? So Abaddon, he could be a position 5. Now Alchemist, I would say no. Oops, why can't I add him? Here, maybe we have to add one first. Alchemist, I would say no, just because he needs a lot of gold. People have theorized him as a support, but I don't like it. Axe, I've seen. Beastmaster, I could see some potential. Brewmaster, I've seen. I don't like the idea of Bristleback. I just think he needs too much gold. Let's get rid of him. Centaur I've seen, CK, sure. No, he doesn't do much. Yeah, sure, okay. Nope. Maybe. Nope. Nope. Yeah. No. And the trend you might start seeing of the people I'm picking out of here on who can't play position 5 at all, you'll notice they need a lot of gold to be effective. They need a lot of experience. And if they don't have those, then they just don't contribute much to your team. Whereas all of these heroes that I'm leaving provide something at least, whether it's lockdown, whether it's a very good spell that just makes them effective even at low levels. Like, they offer something as a hero. Who's here? A lot of agility heroes gonna get rid of here. AM, useless. Arc Warden, useless. Bloodseeker, I've seen it. Bounty, I've seen it. Broodmother, useless. Clinks, I'm starting to see it. Drow, I've seen it. Ember, sure. Faceless. And Gyro. I don't like it. Jug, but I could see it. Lone Druid, Dusa, Meepo. I don't think right now he can do it. Naga used to be able to. Nyx, Ango. She had a 1-day stint where she could be a support. Probably not good. I don't like it. Nope. 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 No. No. I've seen some 4 positions. Sure. Who do we have here? Hey, yeah. Not as a position 5. Blah, 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 blah. Int heroes, you'll notice, are generally much better at being supports because they're usually focused around their spells, which means they're only experience dependent and not gold dependent, potentially, to some degree anyways. Q is so good right now, actually. As a position 5, though, sounds awful. I would hate it. I would feel tilted if I saw it in my game. No. Well, I guess. Okay. So, if you tried to play any of these as position 5, I would feel tilted. And I am like a very open person to weird picks. I think there are many weird picks in here still, but like any of these heroes, you'll notice they need a lot of gold, a lot of experience. And when they don't have that, I just don't see them adding anything in. So if you're trying to pick out your support hero, please, at bare minimum, pick out from one of these and not from any of these. But really, one of those earlier pages I had, that would be a lot better. So like, really, someone from here would be a great place and one of these guys. But like, if you really loved one of these heroes in here, I guess you can go for it. I think it'll make your games harder and you might get some flack, but again, I'm kind of into weird stuff. So if you were like, I'm going to be the best position 5 Underlord player ever, let's see it. Then send it to me. I'd love to see that. So I think that's it for this video. It's very long. It's going to be really long. It's going to be like an hour. But that pretty much covers all these different heroes you could possibly play. The next video, or 4, I'm not sure how I'm going to break it up, are going to cover mechanics. So once you've picked out your hero, you're going to go practice those mechanics before we enter into the game, and then we'll finally break down some thought process decisions. So thank you for watching again, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.